But it's up to him now, isn't it? He's as Augie said, he's nailed his colours to the mast with the budget. It is now up to him to solve the problems. That's what his job, ultimately, that's what his job is, right?
At the same time, too, though, as much as we're talking about Arsenal need to show up their midfield, Rice and Odegaard are two of the best midfielders in the league. And while, yes, we've criticised Havertz and he had a decent spell going up until now, you would think that Arteta would be able to do a lot with this midfield. I go back to Arsenal-Liverpool, and I remember pre-game just looking at Liverpool's midfield was Szoboszlai, Endo and Jones. And I thought Arsenal are going to absolutely boss the middle of the park here, and anything could be further from the truth. Now, while we could say, yes, that show up the midfield, I think he had better personnel than Klopp had in a game that Arsenal should have lost. So Arteta does have a lot of work to do that doesn't necessarily involve bringing new players in.
Kieran, did you hear anything that's going on behind the scenes when you were there?
Look, Dan, I wouldn't tell you if I did, would I?
All right, go on, right.
He doesn't trust you? Is that what it is?
I'm not going to tell anyone, am I?
No, the only thing I did hear was the Thomas Partey thing needs to be addressed. So I don't know what's going to happen with it, but we haven't seen him feature for a while now, and I think he's been such a big miss. I would hate to see him go, but at the same time, I don't think to ask Dec to do a full season with the Champions League in that position is just such a big ask. So that could be something that might be addressed in January.
We're not sending him to Arsenal's training ground anytime soon, are we? In some big budget ESPN FC trip when he comes back and say, "What did you learn?"
Yeah, what did you garner?
I'm not telling you.
I'm not telling you. Nothing.
I wonder if there's any way they could push Declan Rice a little bit further forward, then that might have a positive effect. But then he has done such a good job in the main at covering for some.
Can Jorginho come in? Can he play a role?
That possibly could be something, but then they've not been keeping clean sheets anyway. But I don't think that's down so much to Declan Rice. I think you could argue he's been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, but I don't think Martin Odegaard has certainly reached the standards that he did last year. I mean, he's had little moments, little passes, but he hasn't really come up with the goods in the big games. I think that's one of the criticisms of Odegaard, is that against some of the weaker teams, he gets all this time in the ball and he looks this flashy, but really in the real big games or the tight games and games when their back's against the wall, certainly this season, he hasn't really come up with that killer pass or that winning goal as often, I think, as Arsenal fans would like, or certainly they need him to do. But this is intriguing. It's a hurdle for Arteta to go over, and let's see which way he turns.
And of course, FA Cup coming up as well. The game live on ESPN Plus. So we'll bring you. Will be, of course, Arsenal against Liverpool. This is not what you need, Mark, is it? If you're Arteta.
No, I mean, you have to question what sort of team he'll put out for that one as well, because managers tend to rest players a little bit for the FA Cup, but he probably needs to win it. I mean, he needs to put some silverware on the table now, because a lot of money's gone in. If the Premier League's out of the way, the Champions League is going to be a big ask for Arsenal. He needs to do well in that competition. So there are difficult times for Arteta. Arsenal are 10 points worse off after 20 games this season than last season. So that is a big drop. I think that's the biggest drop in the Premier League. So he has to ask questions as to why that's the case. Kieran's right. They've missed Thomas Partey. They've obviously had a few issues with recruitment. The goalkeeper situation's been a strange one. Zinchenko looks out of his depth at left back. Could he be the guy in midfield that holds it? There's a defensive midfielder maybe that can answer that question. But he's got questions to answer, Mikel Arteta. There's something missing, and I don't know what it is. Whether I think they're missing a bit of Granit Xhaka's energy at times. I know he's gone there, but they just missed something from last season that they haven't quite replaced. And I think if he can't find that answer in the January transfer window, whether it's moving people around, loans, whatever, they're going to struggle to finish top of the league. I really think that this last week has blown the title for Arsenal, to be honest, because they just dropped 8 points in 3 games. That's a lot to drop in such a short space of time.
Yeah, Manchester City loving what they're seeing, as do